Okay, Astrid, can you please take the stage? Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the compliments. I handle compliments really badly because I am a stubborn thinker maker, but I often believe that actually means that I don't really get it at all. So tonight I want to take you with me through my search towards the good and share some of the insights I acquired along the way. About the picture with the moustache, actually that was when I did a talk on equality, and that men have higher pay than women usually in our business. So by dressing up as men, I was trying to raise the income for us all. It didn't work, but it was fun. And then someone from the audience yelled "feminist" to me, and I really experienced that as a big compliment. So today, what I want to do, I'm going to share some thoughts with you, as I said, and then in the end, we're going to do a little breakout on some mirror boards and share the thoughts we all have together. But there'll be plenty of time to ask questions and discuss the things I'll be sharing with you. So I'll start to share my screen with you. I have a short presentation. It's going to take a bit more than half an hour, and people who know me know that I will go fast, but not to worry, because I'll share the presentation with you if you want. Does everyone see a red screen with the desperate girl on it? Yes. And do we move towards the white screen? Thank you. Okay, so this is, like I said, this is actually me looking for answers, and I think the core of my search is how to combine the theory and the practical, because I found when I think I can call myself a senior in the field. I am a lady that UX is. I used to be more, but now I've become more towards a strategist. It's what happens in your career. Just where you start out building real products and then you move up or away. That's already a question, into new job descriptions, and then you become a director, something. And I felt at a certain point that there was a conflict in that, and I think you cannot separate the thinking from the making. So I quit my job and I'm combining it again. So I'm happily coaching the junior copywriter and making my own illustrations and doing the strategic thinking and writing books and stuff, because I really think it should be a combination, and I'm going to share with you why. So we go back in time a bit. This is me, and this is my mum. And this was a scene that was quite frequent in our household. So my mom was doing this. She was a stay-at-home mom who had to give up her job when she got married. Oh, can you imagine? But she was forever busy with things, and I would just sit at the table and also be busy with things. And I got a firm education into being a good person. So what I got from my upbringing is you always have to be honest, you have to be kind to people, you have to listen carefully, think for yourself, contribute to society, and use your talents for good. And starting with this slide because I've come to realize that being personal about your profession as a designer, in my view, might be the key towards this better world. So I think we have to make it much more personal than we did before. I'm also a bit hesitant to share this because making it personal also makes you vulnerable. And I just heard Herman said before we all started that he's been joining meetups all over the world. And that to me is a very frightening phrase, because it's very difficult to perceive your knowledge as valuable when it's implicit, personal, subjective knowledge. So this is it's a thin line I'm walking on. So I'm going to start with a little story. This is an app I made with a lovely team a few years ago, and you see the app in the left bottom corner. It's on the screen. That's not active at the moment, and that's what I like a lot. So this is about a girl getting support in developing in her development by doing little exercises and little fun things. And the program was structured in the app that would say what practice you could do at what moment of the day, and it was very much focused on making working on her development, a natural process within a family setting. So not a medical setting, but a family setting. The girl has Down syndrome. And in Holland, when you have a child with Down syndrome, you immediately are thrown into a medical context. You get all sort of help from outside, but the big need that the families had, that we talk to, is to just have a baby and cherish and love the baby and not perceive it as a problem constantly. So in this project, we were aiming at this human factor, putting that at the center. Of course, it's a likable project. As you see with many of these types of projects, we won a lot of awards, and we got 2 Golden Lovey Awards, and we were invited to London to celebrate. I don't know if any of you ever been to a Lovey Award party, but it's glamorous, it's high end, it's advertising, it's fancy people looking super smart, and it's very classy drinks and all of that. So we won this award with our very low budget project, and they asked us to come to London to collect the award on stage, but we had to pay for our own tickets, which is also very advertising like, right? Join the party, but pay for your own tickets. And then I said, okay, we're happy to join. We're happy to come to the party, but only if we get time on the big center stage to make a plea for our project in this rich, prosperous audience. And they allowed us to do so. So we were on this big stage in a very big theater, packed with advertising people with very expensive snake leather boots. And I asked them not to go to Cannes that year to celebrate themselves, but to instead save the money and invest it in these type of projects that are sometimes hard to fund. And then afterwards, when we had the drinks, it was a glam party. We were extremely underdressed, and then they all came to us and sort of made a lot of pledges, and they were recognizing our special attitudes towards whatever, blah, blah, blah. It's great what you do. I wish I could be more like you. Those types of comments we got a lot. And then we thought, oh, well, this was great. So we're now definitely going to get the funding to make a British version and a French version and a Spanish version for all these children around the world who could benefit of these sort of tools in their development. And then in the weeks afterwards, we heard nothing. So everyone came to us and hugged us and praised us and committed to our cause. And then when the party was over and everyone got on their plane back to their home country again, nothing happened. And I was so devastated by it that I decided to look into ethics in design, because what the hell, excuse me, what happened? How can everyone express this need to be an ethical designer, but at the same time feel unable to do so? That really hit me hard in the face. So I bought the go-to book to think about ethics, which is Design for the Real World, where Victor Papanek, I think it was written in 1974. I have it here, it's very worn, I write in it a lot. And I thought this is supposed to be the Bible for good. So when I read this, I know it, I will know forever how to be in these sort of situations. Well, Papanek claims everything is design. So every process that is intended towards changing the behavior of people into something else is design. And everyone that's involved in these types of processes is a designer. So he has a very broad definition of a designer. And it's your choice to be a good person as a designer. And it's also an obligation to be a good person as a designer, also if it would mean sacrifice. So that's his stand. There's a lot in the book. If you don't know it yet, please get your hands on one, because it's a super inspiring book, but it's also a bit strict. So I got into research with my partner Vasilis. I think he's also in the call, and we had I asked him to join me on this quest, and he first refused because he said it's too hard. I won't join you on your quest. It's just too difficult. I don't feel like it. And then I tempted him into making a podcast with me and talking to some people about ethics in our field. And he said yes, very gracefully so I was very happy. And after some talks with different people, we came to a little set of conclusions. So there is definitely the ivory tower with the experts on top talking very difficult. And as a designer, a lot of designers we talk to feel that if you want to be an ethical designer, you can't, because it takes 20 years of study and you really have to deeply understand everything Kant ever wrote. And if you're going to be an ethical designer, you have to make sacrifices. No more parts to Kant, no more snake leather boots. It means having low income and being super aware of everything that's bad in the world. And if you're going to be this ethical designer, there are these rules that you have to follow always. So it's going to take sacrifices, but it's, of course, it's worth it, but it's going to take sacrifices. And this just, I didn't like that, because if it's so hard, if it can only be, if we can only become ethical designers by overcoming these huge barriers, nothing will ever change, right? So this is terrible. So I looked into this a bit more. And then I thought one of the main things that everyone I talked to said is they're all designers who are not theoretically schooled on ethics feel they are imposters. They suffer from the imposter syndrome. They can never know enough about ethics to have the right to speak up, because all the other people know more. That's how it feels. And then I read someone who explained the imposter syndrome to me, and he said, no, it's not like this. It's not like you're the little one and the others are the big one. It's everyone has a little separate part of the knowledge, and you only touch upon the knowledge with other people that at that moment you're interested in. So if I talk to someone about ethics and he has clever things to say, I automatically assume he knows everything about ethics, but he doesn't. So this knowledge that we have, everyone knows a little bit, and in total it feels like this, but we all know a little bit. And this sort of relieved the tension for me, because then I thought, okay, so if everyone knows a little bit, all we have to do is connect all this knowledge to each other, and then we know a lot as a group. So that's already a strategy towards facing these difficult challenges. What everyone also said is it's the system. The system is killing us. We don't like our world. Most designers want to do good, but feel they are limited because there's a lot of competition, there's focus on companies, there's a lot of bias towards making money. We have to negotiate everything that has to be good because it's going to cost. Own interests of companies become first. Usually our own perspectives come first, and distrust towards a lot of companies express a distrust towards their clients as an attitude. This is what designers told me, right? So I'm not saying this is the absolute truth, but it's what we got back. And then what we long for is cooperation. We want to be a community. We want to support society. We want to cooperate together. We want to work on this big picture. We want to connect perspectives, and we want trust as an attitude. So in order to become ethical designers, we have to enforce a huge system change. Okay, so I looked into that. Then I got to Tristan Harris, and Tristan Harris is an ex-Google employee who quit when he saw the light, and now has this foundation where he is doing research on ethical design. And he says, we just have to switch from the old to the new. So just look at the list. I'm going to pick a few. So instead of disrupting everything, which was, of course, last century, we have to find and strengthen human brilliance. Yeah, right. Instead of growth at all costs. Well, that's nice, right? We have to bind growth with responsibility. If we're not going to obsess over metrics anymore, but we're going to obsess over what really matters. Well, this sounds really great, but when you're a junior designer working in an ad agency, it's not so easy to grab this lovely schedule with the lovely icons and then make it a reality in your own world when there's the assignment that demands you to increase whatever in the company that you're working for. So this is a nice idea, but it's also a bit unkind to present these sort of schedules, because it doesn't really work when you're in a day-to-day doing a job and not always being able to control everything that is within your job. So when you're rich and when you're very senior, you might be able to make some changes on this level, but when you're not, it's much more difficult. And I think a lot of people who talk about ethics tend to forget that it's actually so difficult. And then I stumbled over the work of Martha Nussbaum. She's an American philosopher, a modern philosopher, one of the most important thinkers of our time, she is called. And she has kind words for us. So she says, these impossible rules, they are indeed impossible. People are vulnerable to external factors that may compromise or even negate their human flourishing. So we're saying we're vulnerable, we want things, but we're vulnerable to achieving our goals because there's so many things distracting us. And acknowledging this vulnerability is a key to realizing the human good. So to understand that it's maybe what you want, but maybe not what you can do, and that you're vulnerable in such a way is a key in realizing the human good. So we can be human after all. That was a big relief. So, so far, so good. But how can we make this concrete? So this is the one, this is a slippery slope where I'm heading towards. So please be kind to me. So how can we kindly smuggle the good into our day-to-day business, the work that we do? And I want to show you the most beautiful example I ever saw. And Marije, I know you're there, you've seen it before. I really, really love it. So I'm going to ask you to look at it carefully. It's from my local supermarket, the Jumbo, which is a very common supermarket. It's 5 minutes away from my house. And this was in the first Corona lockdown in Holland, where we're all still very scared. We didn't know what this Corona really was. And we were just crossing the street to avoid being too close to other people. So it was a nervous period in our lives. And there's already a little sticker provided by corporate communication that says houd afstand. So it's in the back, keep your distance. But it was so hard to notice because it's exactly similar to all the other communication in the store. So nobody obliged by these new rules that were set because nobody saw the sticker on the floor. And then one day, the installation that you see in the front was implemented in the store. So there's a lot going on. So if you look at the floor, it says niet inlopen, don't go here, eenrichtingsverkeer, one direction only, one way only, don't enter here. And then she also used the fragile stickers that they use in the back office. And what I find particularly touching is that the handwriting is actually, I think it's a girl's handwriting because of the open dots on the I and the little question marks with a cute triangle. It's a young person writing on the floor because she's just so angry and so fed up with all these people always entering her personal space. When we're living in a pandemic, nobody knows what's happening, but everyone's so rushed and so focused on themselves that she felt, I don't know what she felt, but I see a lot in this. And then she even put the sign on top of it because it still wasn't clear enough. So there's a lot of attention into this situation. And miraculously, or maybe not, of course, it worked. Nobody ever walked the wrong way again. And it was there for a few weeks before corporate communication took over again. And then, to be honest, it got a little bit more messy, but then we're already a bit used to the Corona situation. So what I like about this designer, because she is a designer in Papanek's perspective, I like it that she takes the space that she has, that she's not compromised by thinking of the system and the way things are supposed to go. She's not been instructed with a briefing. She didn't get the corporate communication rules. She just after work wrote on the floor and put stickers on the floor because she felt she needed to change the situation. And to me, this is the best kind of design. So I thought a lot about her and how this force could lead to such a super efficient solution. I'm not talking about beauty, of course, although I'm quite fond of these sort of designs, but also about effect. And then I read this book by Miriam Rasch. She's a Dutch philosopher. It's called Friction, Ethics in Times of Dataism. And she challenges the idea that everything humans do can be captured into data and can be influenced by analyzing models, by using AI, by using all sort of technical solutions to influence our behavior. And she says, we could want to, but we never will be able to, because there will always be light in the crack of the door. And one of the examples that she didn't put it in her book, but I read it elsewhere, is that was at so when we first hit COVID and the schools had to move towards the corporate software that we use now, for instance, for this meeting, it didn't really work very well, because a school is such a non-designed context that a lot of the processes that were happening in the school didn't fit the corporate environment. And in the beginning, many of the developers working on, for instance, on these types of environments couldn't handle this, because they really couldn't understand that people in schools are fundamentally different than people in companies. When you're in a company, you're sort of a bit, you're similar to each other, but in school you're not. And so you will never be able to design that behavior, because it's such a broad audience in a school. And Miriam Rasch says, even in very corporate organized environments, there's still this light in the crack of the door. You can never really close everything into a design process. So, and she says, as a designer, to oppose the way big tech is trying to design our lives, you have to look for this friction, to create this noise, to celebrate your being human by looking for this and messing around in this little space that we have. So she's the first one who actually said, we can be ethical and change the system, but we can also be ethical and do on our own little field, do little things, just little things to create this little space that we might have, similar to the girl at the Jumbo supermarket. So where is our space for change? As designers, I firmly believe that we have superpowers. So it's a rather special occupation that we have. So because of our training, because of our experience, because of our attitude in the world, we are able to see things. So we see things and we learn from that. Because by looking at it and by thinking about it from a designer's perspective, we understand what's happening. So the explanation I just gave you about the Jumbo girl, I'm sure many of you can relate to such a story, because we understand what it means that we saw. And then from what we see and what we understand, we can design the change. And this is what makes us fundamentally different from people who are only theoretical, because we can actually design the change. And if I'm, well, I am going back to Papanek on this, because I feel this special combination of talents is also it's also an obligation. We have to use it for good, as I was raised as a child. And I think many designers actually believe that too. So using these powers, we can actually make change. So I'm trying to move towards more and more concrete. So to be able to do so, what do we have to do? We have to understand what our perception of good is, because one of the big things that we discovered in the research so far is that many people who talk about ethics or have this set of rules where we all have to commit to, but there are so many differences amongst designers, amongst clients, amongst populations, amongst wealth, amongst everything, that it's very important to allow the space to have a different idea about the good and a different level where you can actually be good. You have to ask the right questions, get back to that, and you have to understand and execute your power. And that's really the fun thing, I think. So one by one, know your good. So I found when studying ethics, there's a lot of books you can read. I've read really a lot, and the more I read, the more it confuses me, because I'm looking for this concrete application of the theory. So this is a summary of the 3 big ethical theories into one image per theory. And these are the questions that, for instance, Kenneth Bowles says, if you ask these questions about your product, then you really are working towards finding the answer that fits your need and that is good for the people. So what if everyone would do this? can the world know I made this? I usually say, can I tell my mother I made this? Because to me, my mom is a very big guide in this. Does it match my values? And the last one, will it make as many people as possible happy? These three combined will give you sort of closure on this. But the last one is actually one that big tech is very big on at the moment. So they tend to optimize things for the masses, but leaving out many people on the side, poor people, disabled people, otherwise not the prime audience they're looking for. So this is a dangerous one that's actually growing. So these are, you can use tools like this to use the existing ethical theories. But I think more important is that you understand what's important to you. So when talking about the good, I told you that many designers have this imposter syndrome reflex. When I mention ethics and I talk about deontology and words like that, many people sort of freeze. But when I don't use those words and we just talk about what is good, for instance, with this card deck that I made, then it's suddenly a very lively conversation. It's very pleasant and people bring back memories and they say, oh, I'm definitely going to be like this person I ever met, or I'm definitely not going to go the way that person I ever met went. So if you talk to designers on a personal level about good, they're really completely aware of what is good. Totally. There's not a shred of hesitation there. So I thought if we could combine this knowledge of the theory, but also with the knowledge of yourself, then there's a really strong combination that enables you to be a firm, strong designer. So know your good, know the theory, but also know your own good. So that's why I started with the 5 words and the beginning. The second one is ask the right questions. I showed you some questions already, but I also found this a very insightful discussion I actually had with Marije, who's also present today, and we talked about her work. And what they do is they always focus on the people. So instead of talking about audiences and personas and use words like eyeballs, time spent, methods, and throw post-it at glass walls, we should just connect and have a conversation and just ask what's happening, ask what's needed, discuss solutions, but making contact on a personal level. So ask the right questions, but also ask them to the right people. So be human have a relation with your audience instead of analyzing your audience in a report or something. And the other one, this is the, so I've been struggling a lot with the ethical theories, and in the end, the best summary I made, combining many of the theories that were important to me, are actually these 2 questions. So the first question, as a designer, I always think that we're serving the people, right? So when I design something, does it help? Does it do what it should do? This is the key question. That's the question, of course, that you'll always be discussing when you're designing. But the second question offers you a different perspective, and it will force you into deciding whether or not you'll be causing damage. So for instance, if we're optimizing a product for as many people as possible, that's helpful, right? But maybe by excluding the not so many people, maybe will cause damage on that side, because they will be maybe have less opportunities because they have no access to the product we're designing. For instance, if you talk about web-based money transfer, many old people find it difficult to work with. So that's damage, right? So if you are really confident that your product is going to help, you should also challenge yourself in asking if your product will cause any damage. And in order to be able to ask this question properly, it's very helpful to ask the question together with other people. So don't only ask yourself because you might be biased, but ask different people so you get a different perspective on your question. So these 2 questions are the ones that still stick with me after 1.5 years of this research. It's this simple, maybe. I hope so. And then finally, and this is the one where, especially where the young designers are maybe not so confident, you have to, if you just, it's not very easy always to do the things you actually want to do, because it might jeopardize your position, for instance. So how can you deal with this? And there's some things. I talked to a young designer a few weeks ago, and he said, it's always so hard because I'm very junior, so I never get to meet the client, and I also never get to meet the actual audience. So there were so many people in between him and the actual people using the product that he felt blinded because he couldn't really connect to the work he was doing. And this is something that you actually see a lot. So there's a lot of information getting lost in translation. So I made a very simple representation of this process. So on the left, there's a parent and a child who want to visit the zoo. They're fans of the zoo and they like to know about upcoming events. So the zoo director thinks, oh, this is interesting. We'll collect email addresses and we'll share our schedule with the people who want to visit the zoo. So this is nice. But then in comes the marketing agency and they says, if you're going to collect email addresses, we might ask more data because then we can understand the audience better and we can optimize your service and maybe make some more money of these clients by sending them personalized offers or whatever. Okay, the zoo director agrees. And then in the end, when we get to the designer, she's asked to design a form that collects as many data as possible. So this is how fast it can go. And of course, it's usually much more complex than this, but I wanted to summarize it. So there's this father and the child who just want to know when the new lion cub is born. And then there's the designer on the right who got the question to design a form in such a way that she can collect as many data as possible. So there's a huge gap in between, and it's created by the steps in between. And I'm not saying it's deliberate, but it's what happened because everyone in this process has a professional bias towards the goals, and it's all slightly different. So, but if the designer would talk to the family, she might design something else that would actually even create more income for the zoo because she would be working more on a relation instead of just harvesting data, which is such a nervous thing of our time today. So if you ask the right questions by giving answers, she might have influence on this process. So be aware that a lot of information is lost in translation. But also as a designer, be aware that you can be the one who always questions the brief. Of course you can. I usually like those people, but not many people feel always as confident to do so. But you can also, as a designer, and remember that's the third special talent that we have, you can ask questions by giving answers. You can propose better solutions than the ones that were demanded in the brief. So for instance, the designer in this situation might say, just give me your email and send the form and you'll get the updates on when the baby lion cub is born. But then afterwards, she can maybe say, after you send your emails, you can say, oh, but I'd like to ask you some more questions. Would that be okay? And of course, you're free to say no, but the fact that it's a much more friendly design than if it would be a lengthy form shows that within her power, without breaking the brief, without displeasing anyone, she can exercise her power in a friendly way. So this is the space where Miriam Arash is also talking about. So when you're in the process from a human perspective and you really try to think back towards the people that you're actually working for and to how to please them, and by doing so checking afterwards if you're also pleasing the other people in the line, then maybe you can come up with a better solution than the one that's lying right before you. And finally, the one that took me years to learn is once when I was a junior designer, I did a sort of a test at a sort of headhunter agency that were putting designers in different companies, and it was a loyalty test. And they were testing where my loyalty would be in a project. And of course, the outcome was that I would be loyal to the user and not to the client that would hire me to create something for the user. And that taught me a big lesson, because you can be loyal to the company that you're working for by generating a lot of money and leads and stuff like that. But in the end, it's always about the people. And if we're going to be this new generation of designer that's from their own span of control will make big improvements in the world, I think we have to connect from people, from human to human. So I would always say that no matter who your client is, no matter who the company is you're working for, you always be loyal to the user, because in the end, when the user is happy, he's happy to connect to the company. So it's not even a loss, but it's much easier to work from this perspective and to just imagine the boy and his father going to the zoo and be very happy about it. You'll be a better designer by thinking about it this way, I think. And almost finally, so we're 2 slides from the end, so please hold on. The main thing also, if we're going to be kind to the audience, we should always also be kind to ourselves, so we can be very demanding on what we want for progress and how we want the world to change. But in the end, there's only so much you can do. So if you look at this graph, you might recognize one of the steps. So the first would be maybe to only be interested and attend a meetup like this, and that would already be a big achievement in your practice, maybe. But maybe then again, next week, when you're with this client that there's a lost in translation situation, you might be aware and you might be able to exercise some power. And so you might move on to the different steps in the line. And in the end, maybe change the system. When you're 60 and filthy rich and fed up with unethical things, you might change the world. Of course you might, but maybe you won't, and you'll just make little changes in your work, and that's the end station where you can, that's the maximum of what you can do. But that's also fine, because I think if we're aware and we do little things, we already make big changes, while at the same time the rich people who left Google will maybe work on the system, of course. But I think we can also be bottom up in our work and be kind to ourselves and understand what it is that we can actually do. And then we'll make a beautiful change, because now with ethics, we experience knowledge is in the others. It's the theory, it's difficult, you have to be very senior. The system is too big to change. Believing it can change is naive. And we're powerless and maybe even passive, because it might make us depressed. But then if we look again, we think, yes, well, knowledge is in others, but if we combine to the others, the knowledge is in me and is in the co-workers. And it's not only about theoretical knowledge, it's also about my private, personal knowledge that I got from how I was raised, of my religion or whatever is very important to me. And small steps are also great steps, because it's steps and there's already a change coming. And to start is the only way. So you can say that it's naive to think things can change, but you can also start changing it and then still be naive. But maybe you might have a little impact. And if you change your attitudes towards that, you'll feel strong and optimistic and connected. And that's already a big change. So even if the change is only in you, it's already a big change. So it's really a sort of a mind shift. A final word, whatever you do, don't be a printer. So be aware of this power that you have as a designer and use it well within your power, but never just do as you're told, because you're not hired to do as you're told. You're a designer. Thank you. That was my presentation. I'm going to stop the share and we might have a little chat.
Thank you very much, Astrid. Astrid,
yeah.
Astrid. Sorry, that was great. So I presume there are some questions, and for me it was very inspiring. Well, I can think of some questions, but maybe someone in the audience wants to ask Astrid something. Yeah, no? Well, very inspiring. There's, oh yes, I see Marije. Yeah.
Yeah, Astrid.
Hey, Marije.
Hello. You told us about your research, and you've come a long way in your research. But what are some subjects you still want to dive into in this field?
Yeah, I think that what's very interesting to me is that there's a really low appreciation of this implicit knowledge. So when you're in a project and you state an anecdote, for instance, about your mother, which I do often when I work for elderly people, many people find that it's not very professional to use those examples instead of a double diamond system or an empathy map, or but still, when you break through that, many people have a personal story to tell. And also when you're with a client, many people at the client also have a personal relation with the subject they're working on. So I'm looking for ways to appreciate this implicit knowledge, but also to harvest it. So what I want to do later on with the people who are keen to join, I'd like to get in the breakout rooms and work on these questions about the good with everyone. But so I'm doing a lot of interviews. So I ask many people the same 10 questions, and the answers I get are really different. But it's very interesting to see that if you're answering the questions as a designer, in the process, you're already more aware of the importance of these personal values that you bring into the mix, and you're already more appreciative of it. And I think the big challenge is to, in a professional context, to be able to allow these personal insights to take center stage and learn from those. That's maybe the biggest challenge now.
Okay, so are you looking for tools you can give to other people to bring their own personal stories into their work?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So now it's the 10 questions that I use as a tool, but it's, of course, it takes a long time and it's difficult. So I'm still in the process of thinking about those things, but it's very premature right now. So I've had a long period of where I was really very insecure about the way my research was going, because I thought I have to do a Tristan Harris like list, because lists are cool and lists are masculine and look very good on a stage, and everyone can retweet the list. But it's really not about the list. It's about the differences between people that we should. So the answer I got to my questions is actually a very unwanted answer, because it's a difficult answer. But now I've come to love it. But it took me some months.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Marije. I was thinking also, or do you have another question for Facet? No? Okay. I was also thinking, you give lots of examples and be kind to ourselves. What can you tell us a situation where you did something in the past or wanted to do something, but you knew it didn't you can't do good or do good enough, something like that. So has there been something in the recent past where it still also happens to you? I mean, where you are in this quest of no.
Now, of course, please, it's really not like I'm this holy person, and so I've worked for Coca-Cola. I've made projects for banks that were meant to create conversion towards new products, and I've also there was one that was also very insightful. I was working for an insurance company, and they sold additional pension plans. I think I think that's what it's called in English. And it was this product, a very fancy product, whereas when you're in your 30s, you would buy the product and put money in every month, and then you get a very small sum at the end, but they were presenting it as a very big product. And I was working with the team that developed the product on it, all very young people in actually the audience. And I didn't get, they couldn't tell me the extra value. And then at a certain moment it hit me, and then they were all marketing people. And then I asked them, who of you has this project in their personal financial set? And nobody did. So that was a big clue. And then the project didn't work out because nobody actually believed in it. And this was a very interesting situation, of course, because it was a rich company with a very commercial product, but nobody believed in it, so it just went dead. I didn't kill it. It was not my position to kill the product, but since nobody was really convinced, it just didn't fly. So I've been in lots of those situations, and by quitting my job and also having far less money than I used to before, I don't encounter so much of those situations anymore. So it also feels like I maybe took the easy way out by quitting all that, and maybe I need to step back into the very commercial world again to try to make changes there. But I just have to get some energy before I can actually do that.
Yeah, good to know. I think some juniors, but also seniors, all kinds of, we all have to deal with these things one way or the other, in professional ways, and sometimes in also in other ways. But I know we have an ethics Slack channel in our Ladies at UX Slack community. So maybe it's if you need some help, or if you want to discuss things about this, I think it's good to reach out to each other about that.
Very good. Yeah, I'm very happy that you offer that, because I'm moving towards tools, so that would be very nice to get some expert opinions on that, because I'm not the best designer in those types of things. So yes, great. It would be great if it's a community effort.
Experts. We are all experts. Eh?
We are, definitely.
So also in this community, there's everything. So so
cool.
it's I think that's the fun of it, and it's also very valuable. Okay, I think we should move on, because we went a bit over the time to the workshops. Please, can you explain what we are going to do?
Yes. So if you're up to it, but you can also just chat and hang around. I showed you the 10 cards with the 10 questions on doing good. So I prepared a mirror board where you can discuss and share those answers by sticking post-its in the right position. So I want to ask you, you'll be divided into breakout rooms, and then with a small team you can answer those things together, and in doing so I hope you want to discuss the answers that you're giving with each other. So I hope to just get some answers from you, but I especially hope that you'll have some nice discussions amongst you. So was it your upbringing? Was it a story that you were told? Was it the teacher in school that laid this basis for your personal opinion on what is good? So that these are the questions. So feel free to skip them if you don't, but it would be very nice for me if you could answer some of them, because it's part of my research. So I'd be very grateful if you could. We'll be divided in small teams. So I think we are 22 people left, so maybe 3 teams.
And I'm going to divide you. And how long are we going to stay in there?
I think
15 minutes?
Yeah, since we're not so many, 15. Yeah, probably. And then we'll get back and just finish up together. And
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, have fun, everyone. One
Thank
moment.
you.
Well, I like one insight very much, where Leanne in our group, this is something that I just realized. I didn't realize it until today, that I had to do a lot of things that I, in hindsight, didn't want to do to become what I want to do, to understand what I do want to do. So I had to do some things that I find now unethical to be able to do more ethical work. So maybe I had to make mistakes. You can, that's an easy way to frame it, but
it also has to do with growing insights because of your experience and experience it in the real world.
Could be, yeah.
It's nice. Also, that someone in my group said that she's not always aware that when she's doing good, but she's very aware when she's not doing good. It feels like a similar insight. Let's see. I found that preventing from there was one in room 2 that I found interesting. Let's see what I wanted to ask you about. Oh yeah, so that was question 10. What do you want or need? And someone says, I need a safe space. I was wondering if the person who put it there might want to share what's behind this answer. I'm not sure. If you're not comfortable sharing, then please don't. So it was a blue Post-it note.
Yeah, it's all right. That was me. Yeah, that
Okay,
was me.
hi.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I mean, speaking about like, because I moved from a different culture, that would be like a bit like speaking about like being like a UX designer, researcher, and employer in general. It was a bit seen different, having taking an initiative or doing something that would be seen as a threat, as someone who wants to take other positions or get on the line and get in the upper management. So I've always like wondered if like is space like the most important things to have? So and someone's agency could actually evolve and could actually become the best versions of yourself or the best designer in that sense of your like you could be one day. So yeah, I value space because I think space gives you freedom of movement with your thoughts and freedom of movement with your initiative or actions. And I think great companies would always like give that space to their employees to thrive. And we've seen example, we've seen Google, and we have seen such example that's been set as an example today for many startups, for example. Yeah, that's what I meant by space. Yeah, so that's what I actually meant. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's a really nice insight, and also relates to some of the answers that I'm looking for them right now. That what people need to. Oh yeah, how did you become like this? So that was elaborating on how did you become good, and many people say having. So it's also about having safety, well, not literally space, but I think it's comparable. Having financial freedom, having the luxury of choice, having the support of my partner. So it's very much about creating the right conditions to be able to make these choices that appear to feel like a luxurious option also. So I'm also sensing that some people, and me included, feel that being able to not having to compromise your ethical ideas in your work is also a luxury position. So it's not something you can just do. Am I right? Does someone want to pose me on this one?
Yeah, I had a question about that to Vasilis. Is that maybe also the case for you? As you said, I had to do things that I, in hindsight, rather wouldn't have done because they're now, in my eyes now, they're not as ethical as I would have liked my choices to be. Does that have anything to do with growing and becoming somewhat maybe independent in your either thinking or financial ways to be able to make choices now to be more ethical?
Yeah, I think that's part of it. For me personally, that's probably part of it. Another thing is growing in. I was a pretty insecure designer when I started out a long time ago, and now I'm maybe less, well, probably less insecure than back then. So that helps as well. Yeah, and a luxury position as well. So I can make a change. I can do another job. They did accept me at this other job. Yeah, this is of course luxury.
Yeah.
Yes, one thing I'd like to add to this is the safe space and the growing as a person, as a designer. It's also about the safe space. It's not feel comfortable only and it's to say something or to do something, but it's I've also had some projects and some clients which were very inviting actually and so inviting that you think, oh God, now I have to think of something very good to do. So it can also be the other way around, where everything is experimentation and everything should be good. Okay, you know how to do good, so do it. And so it's could also be that sounds strange, but also I had that sort of things experience. So it's not as often as the other one, but okay.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, I think it's 9 o'clock. I'm going to wrap up. Or someone else just wants to to ask something more as a final question? No? Okay, then I'll share my screen. Oh, first.
I want to say thank you. Can I say thank you? Because I find it rather touching that you're all answering my questions. So I'm very pleased with the fact that you wanted to share. So it was very, I found it a bit difficult to share all these things, but I got much feedback that I can actually continue my work with. So thanks a lot, everyone. And it's been an honor.
It's been an honor to have you here. I mean, you've done this research for a long time, and I also really admire your podcast with Vasalis. Sorry, do I pronounce it right? So, I think you really, it's really hot at this moment too, but I really think that you are challenging us more and more, and especially with doing this workshops of this exercises. Yeah, it's much more value than just a list of things, you know. So thank you for doing this, and I hope we'll get to know more about your proceedings in your research. People can follow you on your website. It's in the meetup page. Yeah. Okay. So we have a team, and Kimberly is the one who started Ladies at Utrecht with Jirina, and we are with 5 of us. And if you want to join, if you like to organize meetups with us, you're very welcome. There's always space for new people. It doesn't mean that you have to do lots of things. We are really a very casual way of organizing things, and we really helping each other and supporting each other in doing things. And you'll learn a lot. I can assure you that. So you're very welcome if you want to join. And another thing is that, of course, we love to hear your story, especially if you never presented before. We also like to help people who are willing to share the stage for the first time. And we also will help, of course, with the things you want to do. But also, if you have a new topic, if you know how to do a certain workshop and you want to try things out, you're very welcome to do that here. Then please contact us on our email address. Then some announcements. The Ladies at UX mentorship program has started again, so they are looking for mentors at this moment. The mentees can sign in later. Well, everyone is welcome to be a mentor. It's all remote, so also mentors from different parts of the world. If you want to join the mentorship program, you're very welcome, because there are always more mentees than mentors. Last year there were 95 matches, I think. So that's great. It's a really condensed program. There are 2 parts: the standard program where you have every 2 weeks, and you have a very short program for just a few months. But the other one is almost 3 months, 4 months that you regularly meet. And of course, you've got lots of tools and things to share about how to be a mentor. And the other way around, if you want to be a mentee, you're also very welcome. Please, you see the URL there. And we have a bi-weekly lunch gathering just for 2 weeks. Maybe Kimberly, you want to share something about that?
About the bi-weekly lunch gathering? Yeah, it's a really casual gathering, so you can find it on our meetup page. We had it last Friday, so not next Friday, but the Friday after that, I think the 24th is our next gathering. And it's really informal to network, because during our meetups now, we have a speaker, we have a workshop, we don't really get the chance to talk. And after the meetup, a lot of people go because they're tired, and I understand. So during the lunch, we only talk to each other, and we had it twice now, and it was really nice. It was just like a mentor session because we're giving each other advice and just catching up. It's really nice. So join us.
And I hope the next meetup or some of the next meetups will be in person.
Yeah.
And of course, there most of the time we have more time to also mingle more and that sort of thing. Online is more draining, of course. So saying that, I'm going to stop talking now. You can follow us. I tweeted some tweets, Astrid. So this time no lists, but the lovely quotes and visuals of your presentation are in there. So please retweet, share the word. If there are any questions, maybe some announcement from the audience about vacancies, or are you looking for a job or something, then of course you can, you're welcome to state that here. Well, then I think, thank you very much. Please hang around a bit more if you want to, and see you next time then. And Astrid, again, thank you.